Hey, Guru Nation, welcome back. This is a very, very special episode. So, there's a backstory to this. You're probably clicking on the title. You saw clinical trial manager, CTM. Definitely a lot of people. It's like an aspirational job. And we're going to get into all of that because we have Tiffany Ashton
Mhm.
and Clinicentials is having an inaugural first class. So you'll see the link to that registration page underneath the show notes and on the video. But Tiffany approached me like maybe a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, Dan, I'm thinking of giving away two scholarships. I think it would be cool for like you to decide from two members of Guru Nation." And I actually had to think about this for a while, and then it kind of became more and more obvious to me. Um, as I thought about it longer. So it's not just anybody. If you texted me once in your life, said I want to be a CTM, but you've not even been a coordinator or you haven't worked in research, like the two women that I picked, they've put in their time. I
Mhm.
personally have worked with them on different fronts. Jesla Natano actually helps me do biz dev a lot for our site network. Christine Naro is our first brand ambassador for Latinos in Clinical Research. So I've actually worked. I know their work ethic. I know that they're gonna be CTMs if that's what they want. And
Mhm.
so after a while, it was a no-brainer for me, Tiffany. So these are the two, Jesla Natanu, Christine Nara. We're gonna formally introduce them, but I just wanted to formally introduce you, Tiffany, first. Why create and thank you very much for from Guru Nation for this. Why create the CTM Academy?
Oh, there's a need out there, Dan, and that's just plain and simple. A lot of people who are in the CTM role, they either were promoted from within, so maybe a senior CRA, and they gave them the opportunity to become a CTM, and they took the opportunity, rightfully so. And they may have been promised some training or, being able to shadow another CTM, but then when they got in, that didn't happen, and they just gave them 100 different SOPs and they just threw them to the rules. And that is what the lot of the situation is currently within the CROs. They need the CTMs to run the trials, but they're not providing, and they don't have the time to provide the nurtureship and everything that is needed to go along with the CTM role. And so that's what the CTM Academy is. It's beyond SOPs. We get into the practical. We get into if the SOP says how do you or no, if the SOP says prior to the first site activated, you need to plan an investigators meeting. That's the SOP. It says plan an investigators meeting. We go into the how to. What are the actionable steps? What's first? How do we select a date? How do we select a location? Who's going to speak? What's the agenda? We go into those steps, and that's what is not currently provided in the job setting. They're just given the instruction, and then they have to figure it out. And so we have taken, over 15 years of clinical trial managers experience and bundled it into this course to give those actionable steps to those that are either in the CTM role or also looking to aspire to get into the CTM role. And so they know exactly what to do to make them successful, confident, and be able to actually manage the study like the sponsor and CRO would want them to, but with actual education.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I've always been curious, like how they select the location for the investigator meeting. Because one time we had a meeting in Rome, like way back in the day. This was '06, and I missed out on it. But usually they're just in Dallas Airport.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends on the location of all the participating sites. And so they usually try to do a central location, but sometimes they try to have a fun place as well just to make the investigator meeting engaging. Another way is if there's a conference, like a therapeutic conference per se, maybe in Rome, they may have grouped it together because a lot of the physicians were going to be in that area already. And so they could get either discounted airfare or kind of tag on the back end of a therapeutic conference in Rome at that time. So those are some of the
Wow.
things. Yeah. So
Thank you,
that's
Tiffany.
yeah, that's some of the details that, you may or may not know. And it's like lessons learned and practical tips that you could use and apply. And so when they say, "Hey, let's plan an investigators meeting," you could say, is there a therapeutic conference that we could possibly piggyback on? Or, if we're inviting no, EU investigators, we don't want to have an investigators meeting in July, August, or September because they are on vacation. So that's not going to have poor attendance. So those little things that you wouldn't know, that you have the mentorship and the guidance within the course, and then we actually apply it. We're going to create an investigators meeting agenda. So how would you do it? How are you going to create that investigators meeting agenda? Instead of just telling you what to do, we're going to actually apply it as well within the course.
Yeah, that's free job interview advice
Hmm.
from Tiffany for clinical trial manager. So before we get
Hmm.
into Jesla and Christine, like I was just gonna ask you, and by the way, Guru Nation, I did an entire video with Tiffany, maybe more than one, on her
Yeah.
career too,
Hmm.
right? On
Hmm.
your career, what it's like, the day-to-day stuff. That's just like a little like snippet of like, the things she will teach and the stuff you can catch from those podcasts.
Hmm.
But who makes a good CTM? Like, can it be anybody? Do you need an advanced degree? Kind of give us like a little like overview of this.
Yeah. So you have to be a positive individual. You have to be a leader because you're going to be leading the team and you're going to be leading 15 plus individuals and colleagues. So you have to be ready for that leadership role. You also have to pay attention to detail. You also have to, let's see, what are some other traits? Be flexible, be a problem solver. You have to be able to think outside the box within our GCP guidelines and say, hey, well, we're having trouble enrolling. What are we going to do? You have to be adaptive. You have a lot of qualities that you need to have as a CTM, and most CRAs have them as well as CRCs. So if you're on the CRC journey, or if you're currently a CRA, you have the makings of a CTM. The thing about it is you haven't seen the full spectrum from study award to startup to maintenance to closeout if you're in the CRC or CRA roles. You've may only saw, P through Z, but you don't know what happened before then. And that's what a lot of people don't know when they get into that role. They're like, what is a request for proposal? What's a bid defense? How do we make project timelines? All of those things is what the CTM has to do and has to manage and push and implement. And that's what this training would do.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's perfect. Perfect summary. Yeah, I
Hmm.
remember I had to learn what a RFP was myself the hard way, and and not fun. But Jeslyn Atanu, welcome.
Yes.
And by the way, we've interviewed both Jeslyn and Christine on the show before too.
Yes.
If you just search their names with my name, you'll find the interview on YouTube. But Jeslyn, give us a little bit of your background and then what it is about CTM that's like intriguing to you. And Tiffany, feel
So,
free to ask her questions as well, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
indeed. So, background wise, I actually started off working as a healthcare IT consultant, and that was where I got my first exposure into clinical research.
Mhm.
Definitely piqued my interest. So, I started working as a volunteer in sites in the Houston area. If I found their name, they were getting some kind of contact from me, and they were going to let me into the door. If that was the last thing that they did, they were letting me in the door.
Mhm.
So I reached out, religiously, consistently, heard a whole lot of no's.
Mhm.
But I would fall down, cry, moan about it, but then I'll get right back up and got back in the wagon. So I finally got through to a site that allowed me to work as an intern.
Mhm.
And then after about give or take a month, actually less than a month, they allowed me to become officially a CRC. So I
Mhm.
did my happy dance, started working, and just it almost fast tracked from there. From CRC, got into CRA role. I've been working with Dan as a CRA with the interns, just helping with biz dev. And I do appreciate how with DSCS, they've allowed me to spread my wings as well as with the different companies that I consult with. It allows me to spread my wings to where I'm not pigeonholed in one spot. So I'm not just doing strictly trials. I'm doing trials. I'm, having touch points with reg, with different systems, with CDCs, ETMFs, with the different systems. So I've been able to grow to evolve wide as well as to grow upwards. So background, that's a brief summary of how I've gotten to where I am today, and still have a long road ahead of me. I'm very goal oriented. So next on the top of my list is a CTM. So Tiffany, you are the answer to my prayer, just like Dan was the answer to my prayer. You are the next answer to my prayers. So hallelujah.
Thank you. But yeah, great background, natural progression towards the CTM role. So yes, it would be an easy, transition in.
Yeah.
And this course will also prepare you. A lot of people, when they go to interview, if they don't meet all of the job description, points, even if you meet 50, or even if you can tell them, hey, I haven't been a CTM, but this is how I would plan an investigators meeting. This is how I would do this. This is how I would do that. And this course will give you that foundation to be able to speak like you can actually implement your task. And that's all they need. That's all. They will easily give you a entry level position based off of, interviewing and your knowledge and your positivity as well.
Indeed, I would go ahead and testify a little to that because over the course of my growth in clinical research, I started coaching prospective clinical research professionals. And those are some of the pain points that I've been able to help them address. And from my perspective, going through the interview processes with the different companies that I've, applied and interviewed with for different roles, definitely that's something that needs to be taught and addressed because a lot of people trying to get into clinical research are absolutely great, very intelligent people that are passionate and will kill it in the industry, but they can't get in.
Exactly.
So just knowing the job and knowing how to interview properly, those are two critical things that I'm really glad will be addressed during this training in particular. But yeah, this is really good.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. We have a whole module on career tips, resume, interviewing. Also, if you want to be a CTM contractor, that's usually after you've been a CTM for a couple years and have some experience under your belt, you can then look into being a CTM contractor as well. So we'll go into some of those details in the course. And that's something that a lot of people, they would like to know, but they don't know where to find that information. But we'll go into it and kind of action steps for that.
Nice.
See, Tiffany, you can see why I picked Jesselyn. By the way, Jesselyn, I completely forgot when I was thinking about you as the candidate that you have the corporate background, like for recruiting. Like you were doing a little bit of job recruiting as well. So she can even I mean, she already has a skill set for selecting talent, which I'm assuming CTMs get involved with hiring CRAs, right? Or not so
Not
much.
really. Project resourcing is a whole department, and especially at a CRO, they are shuffling around uh, people as just to fill the spot. So you really have to take what you can get. Yeah, you don't have a say unless there's performance issues, and then you can, kind of escalate that on up and get another person, but you may not be involved in actually, deciding. They'll just say, here's your new person for your team.
I
So
got you.
yeah,
I got you.
unless you may be at a small sponsor company and you might have some,
Small.
interaction there.
Small
Yeah,
is the new big. See,
exactly.
I'm still correct in my choice of Jeslyn. All right, thank you, Jeslyn. And we'll ask more questions. And then Christine Naro, um, Latinos in Clinical Research brand ambassador. I've known Christine probably as long as I've known Jeslyn, actually. I think I met you guys both around the same time, um, through YouTube. And well, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? Because I know it, but why don't you share your background with Guru Nation?
Yes, absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much, Dan and Tiffany, for this opportunity. I'm very grateful to be part of the CTM course.
Mhm.
So, my background is I started in ophthalmology through the military, and they had a clinical research department where I became a CRC. And then eventually I did obtain a bachelor degree, and I met Dan through Latinos in Clinical Research and started networking, and I built my network up. I got on LinkedIn and started just trying to be a go-getter and talk to different CRAs or people in the industry. And eventually I applied to become a CRA, and I got that job for a medical device company.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, so what intrigued me about CTM is basically just the opportunity to level up your skills. Just kind of like what Tiffany said, is like some of the companies, they want you to grow as an employee, but there's not a lot of opportunities for training. And I've experienced that as well. And just being part of a program like this is phenomenal. And I highly recommend anybody that wants to level up to attend one of these programs. And also, just excited about taking a study from startup all the way to closeout
Mhm.
and leading a team, because I lead teams in the military as a non-commissioned officer. I've gone through a lot of leadership courses, but it's different. And there's always difference between military teams and civilian teams. So that's going to be really fun, is just leading or learning new skills on how to lead teams and also develop new management skills. And I'm
Great.
also excited to represent Latinos and women. So thank you.
Great. We'll be happy to have you, definitely. And you have some, the one of the items that I wanted to touch on is the CRA experience. Having that CRA experience in your background, becoming a CTM makes you so powerful, and you won't understand it until you are leading a team of CRAs and you have 6 CRAs on your team and you have weekly calls with them and you're going over issues, trends, data management, outstanding items, and you can really put yourself in their shoes. They're like, I got a database lock on this study, I have 10 days on site on the other study, and you're like, you know what, I can handle, let me go ahead and follow up with the sites for you and give them these data management reports so they'll be ready for your monitoring visit. And that builds such a strong rapport because they feel like you have their back and you really support them. And so that is a really strong aspect to have in your career. Becoming a CTM is that CRA experience, because you really can feel for what we're going through. And it makes you think outside the box. Like sometimes I would come on in the evening 1 or 2 times a day. I mean, 1 or 2 times a week, and give them the opportunity to have like office hours with me so we can go through their trip reports. Let's finalize it. I know you just got back to the room, you just got off the road from traveling, like your trip reports needs to be finalized in 2 days. Let's get it done. And you have that kind of sympathy because you've been there and you know the struggles that CRAs have. So that's a good aspect to have in your background as well. So all good qualities you both have.
Yeah, I needed, like when I did my selection criteria, CRA, having some CRA experience is
Hmm.
absolute must. Like if
Hmm.
I didn't consider, if they didn't, and both do,
Hmm.
as of the last 2 years, I think for both. So awesome. So anything you wanted to ask to either Jeslyn or Christine, Tiffany? You're the co-host today. This is gonna be the easiest interview I've ever done.
Let's see. Okay, are there any parts of the CTM role that make you nervous from what you've heard about it? Like, is there anything that you're like, "Ooh," anything that's kind of stands out?
For me, it's going to be timelines, because we all know that we struggle with things like recruitment and funding and things like that. And so just try my best to meet timelines. I'm all about that, especially because time is money in research, really. That's what it boils down to. And so it makes me nervous, but at the same time, I think that it's something that I can do.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big one. Yes, you hit it because all of the first patient in, first patient dose, first site initiated, those are all based on timelines. And then they're usually tied to sponsor goals like for 2022, we wanted to have the first patient activated, I mean, first site activated in this study in the fourth quarter. And so the sponsor is like pushing and driving along with all of the activities that you're having to do. And that's one of the biggest factors and biggest things that CTMs need to keep an eye on is the timelines. You need to like reference those almost on a daily basis to make sure that you're like, okay, something's approaching. Let me start working backwards. Let's get that going. And then also risk mitigation. Not sure if
Mhm.
you heard of that before, but risk mitigation. Okay, I know I'm not going to meet that timeline. We got to break it to the sponsor. What are we going to do? You know, like how can we either mitigate this risk or come up with the next best solution? So those are some good, it's a good thing to kind of keep on your radar and be aware of, Christine. So you're on the right track there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you actually addressed what I was going to raise up with the whole risk mitigation is just learning how to establish and handle that. Definitely time is money. I know with clinical research is such a costly industry
Mhm.
and you don't want to mess with the money, and definitely patient safety and data needs to be accurately, gotten in a timely manner. So
Mhm.
that whole risk factor is how to balance that, knowing all of the different constraints. So you
Yeah.
reached where I was about to go.
Yeah, and the risk, in study startup, you usually try to outline as many risks as you can. So, for instance, if you are working on 8 countries, you may not have all 8 countries. A risk is you may not have all 8 countries up even by June of next year. So, what would be the mitigation? Because we're bringing up a country so we can get patients in that particular country. But maybe we have 2 additional backup sites in the US that if we can't get Belgium up in time, we just bring on 2 additional sites in the US so they could fill that patient void that Belgium would have been providing. So it's trying to be proactive, but to a certain extent, you have to just wait until some situations just come up and you're like, oh, I got to figure it out now because we weren't proactive on that one. But it was something that you like COVID, that was a risk
Yeah.
that a lot of, I can tell you, everybody they did not have that in their kind of their outlook. And so then they had to make some adjustments and some plans based off of that new risk that came up. So these are things that we'll go over in the course and get into detail. And it's not about catching the fish for you. Is going to be about teaching you how to fish as well. So when we're doing some of the practicum activities, it's saying, what are 3 more risks that you would consider in this situation? And then we'll discuss as a group, and you may get an additional risk that you didn't identify from one of your fellow, CTM course attendees as well. So we're going to be working together, and at the end of the day, you're going to walk away with a workbook and actual usable materials that you can take into your job. That, oh, I need to create a kickoff meeting agenda. I got a reference that, from my course that I can go back. Yeah. And then, oh, I need to think about risk of having multiple countries. Oh, we did an activity on that. Here's that. So it's more than just learning, it's applying it. And then it's being in a safe space where you can ask your questions and get answers or kind of guidance too.
That's the only way these days. That's like the new way to have courses.
Hmm.
Much more valuable than university. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not gonna learn this stuff. There's no place else to learn it. And Tiffany, you're like one of the only people who could have taught it. So
Hmm.
congrats to you. I always had a question before we get into questions for
Hmm.
Christine.
Hmm.
Uh, who does a CTM report to? Because I've always worked for small CROs, small sponsors. So like I guess I was the role of CTM without realizing it at some points. I reported to the sponsor, but who does a CTM like in a traditional CRO report to?
So there's 2 tracks. There's the CTM line manager who's in charge of your career. Like if you say, hey, I want to go to project director. They would help steer you that way, review timesheets, make sure you stay on your SOPs. But within a project, you would either report to the project manager or maybe even the project director, and you work very closely with them there. And then, your client is the sponsor. So if you're at a CRO, your sponsor says jump, you got to say how high. And, that's a part of managing the sponsor, as well as all of the things that you need to do. That, it's a balancing act. And a lot of times we don't have time for the learning curve. We need to know what we need to do because time is money and the study is behind and we got to get going there.
And then I've always wondered, and a follow-up at a traditional CRO
Mhm.
for CTM, who reports to you? Like who's the stakeholder that report to you directly?
It depends. So every company is different, is structured different. Usually, the CTM, we don't have any personnel that literally reports to us, but we work very closely with. So we work really closely with the clinical trial assistant, the CRAs, and then all of the other departments, data management, biostatistics, the medical monitor. So we all work together. Let me see, there hasn't been a company that wasn't a small sponsor that, someone works right under me. But usually in the traditional sense, we just work with the various departments. And then if we needed to escalate if I needed to escalate a CRA, I would talk to their line manager, the CRA line manager, to discuss, any performance issues.
All right, perfect. I'm sure I'm not the only one curious about this. A lot of site owners watching too. They're curious also. By
Yes.
the way, well, I was gonna ask, would a site owner make a good CTM?
Yeah, they would. I definitely think that they could. You have to look at the job description to see if they're hitting the marks on the job description, if they feel like they could go into that role. But you know what? I did recently worked with somebody. She was the site manager, and she did go into the CTM role, so yeah, CTM
Okay,
one.
see, there
So
you go.
yeah, but it's about those transferable skills identified in the job description. So you have to have those kind of hitting those skills there.
Yeah, site director, I can see. Site owner, I'm not sure, but if you're like a small business
Mhm.
owner, there's ways you can hide it. Because I know
Mhm.
employers, from my understanding, they don't typically like to hire entrepreneurs because the risk is that they're gonna get an
Right.
idea and go do something else. So there's ways to I've gotten jobs, contract jobs as a site owner, and I was able to just put like site director instead of site
Mhm.
owner.
Mhm.
You're not gonna put that on your resume. So if you're in that situation, guys, and you're watching and you're
Yeah.
interested, because there are a lot of you, Tiffany's course will help. Um,
Mhm.
all right, Christine, what are you most looking forward to as a CTM, do you think?
Well, I'm just excited about taking medical innovation to the next level, and that's all clinical research is about. So that's what I'm excited about, whether it be oncology, ophthalmology, you name it, the specialty. I'm just really excited about being able to lead teams and meet these marks to get these new medical devices and medical treatments out there to help just everybody in the world, globally.
Mm, good.
Well, I like that answer. Tiffany, any more questions for Christine?
Let me see. I think we. Let me see. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh
Is
yeah, well,
there?
go ahead, go
Oh,
ahead. I
go
got another
ahead.
one too.
Okay, you go first. I got one. I'm formulating here.
Well, this one's for Christine, but what what do you think will be more challenging for you? I know it's hard to say because you haven't really been a CTM. You may not know everything they do, but I'm assuming you've worked with some as a CRA. So what is something that you feel you need to work on that you already know it's going to be something you're going to need to work on?
Well, I definitely enjoy working, on my own with little supervision.
Mhm.
But the counter to that is sometimes you don't have time to reach out to your boss in those situations where you need to send an answer like right now. And
Mhm.
so to me, I think also just getting to know your boss is like another big part of being CTM, because you got to kind of think what would they do, right? Especially if they're not available to help you out in that second. And so the responsibility is on your shoulders, and just kind of building skills to make those kinds of decisions at the higher level, probably more of a strategic level than operational level.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that you hit it on the head there. As a CTM, when you're usually the only one, on this trial, unless it's a really big trial, your person, your go-to would be potentially your project manager if there's one assigned, or it would be your sponsor liaison, like your sponsor counterpart, so like the CTM at the sponsor. But what you want to do is, as a part of the CTM, you want to try to exhaust all options as you can before you go over there, because then they'll open the protocols and, oh, it's on page 3. And you're like, ah, thanks. I could I could have figured that out. So, unless it's time sensitive. But one of the really good things that you build as a CTM on a project is a FAQ. That all of the team members can kind of pull from for the recurrent questions and everything like that. That's something that your CRAs can pull from, you can pull from, and as you have questions, you usually send those to, like, if they're medically related, to your medical monitor, and then they can help populate those questions. And that really saves some time in a crunch, because most questions that you will receive that will kind of get you stumped will be the protocol medically related ones. And then the other ones, the operational ones, it's you have to be able to use kind of what you know in GCP, and sometimes you have to be flexible, think outside the box. It's not going to be nice and pretty, but if it gets the job done and it stays within guidelines, it's like it has to get done. So being flexible and getting that skill set, that's really good as a CTM as well. And that FAQ, that's going to help
Nice, thank you.
you.
So, Jeslyn, Christine, any questions for Tiffany as we wrap up here?
I'd like to know how many CTMs have graduated from your program?
Yeah, so I have been working prior to this with a lot of CTMs one on one. And so I've worked with over 10 CTMs one on one on the various steps and kind of this process. But outside of that, we have career services within Clinicentials that we have additionally. We work with those that may just have drop-in questions, and that's been over 100 plus people that have come through with just drop-in questions. Hey, I'm interviewing. You have any tips for interviewing? Hey, I need to update my resume. So we have a lot of collective experience, as well as, my experience, almost 20 years now in the industry, in the various roles from CRC all the way up to CTM and even project management. So it's really exciting that we were able to, the group at Clinicentials, bring all of our experience collectively and really put together the course that's going to allow everyone to kind of really get that guidance from study startup all the way through closeout that they would need.
So I have a question for those who are relatively new to clinical research.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to share with them about the CTM role, and if and when they can come to your program to get that CTM training? What time point and what would they need to know in order to do so?
It's a good question. This course is for either those that are currently in clinical research 1 to 2 years and are coming from another role like a study coordinator or even a CRA. CRA is an easier transition than a study coordinator, but it can still happen. You also, if you're in the role or even brand new considering it, or even in the interview stage. So you can be at all levels and kind of in your career, but you do need to have 1 to 2 years, because we want to, at the end of the day, when you graduate, we don't want you to just sit there and say, oh, I've completed this course, I can't apply it, I still can't get a job. And that's what a lot of unfortunately, that's a lot that we see. They get the certificates, but they don't have either the experience or the skill set that's going to easily transition them into the role, where they don't have to, when they interview, it's very clear that they could be in the role successfully.
I had
Great.
another question related to that. Can you be
Yeah.
overqualified? I've been getting comments like, "Oh, PhD." Somebody today posted on my Instagram. 'Cause
Mhm.
I told them that PhDs or someone with a bachelor's, like you'll both start off basically in the same place because no one values your PhD at the beginning. But
Mhm.
once you get to like 1 or 2 years of experience, that's when you start seeing a little bit of separation. Like it may be easier as a PhD to advance or like a master's degree. But let's specifically go PhD. And then I got some comments saying, yes, I agree. And a few saying, no, you know what? PhDs get overlooked because they're scared, the employer is scared that they're gonna leave, that they're overqualified. Do you have anything to say about this?
I think it's all about your interview and how you present yourself. I mean, you can have a PhD and be a CTM, no problem. I don't think you would be overqualified, because you may get in there, and if you have never did startup, you're right in the trenches with everyone else. Even though you have a PhD, it's about that experience. And so the degree, the PhD, that's good, but you have to get the experience. Now, when you have 4 or 5 years under your belt as a CTM and you have a PhD, you can possibly branch out into contracting if that's something that you want to do, or look at your ultimate goal and go up a level, go to project director. But I really think it's about how you express yourself in the interview. If you let them know, hey, I'm here to learn, I'm looking for my next job home, I want to be in the CTM role for the next 5 years, there wouldn't be any reason that they would say, oh, well, you have a PhD, you're overqualified. It depends on how you interview, though. If you're coming in saying something different, then they can say, well, this person may not be a good fit because they're looking to go, project director within the next 2 years.
Yeah, good answer. I mean, I noticed like from a lot of people that use the excuse that they're overqualified, that they didn't get the job, that they're not looking in the mirror
Hmm.
oftentimes hard
Hmm.
enough because
Hmm.
like yeah, that does happen, but it's not as common from my experiences. It's usually something else going on there.
Hmm. Yeah, I do. It's either the resume, it's their interview style, it's how they come across. When you interview, you have to be positive, upbeat. You have to be someone that they're like, yeah, we want you on the team, not like, I don't know about that one. So you have to, there's a lot of little techniques that you can use in to really get your point across and what your goals will be. And even if you say, hey, I'm looking to only be in this role for 3 years as a CRA or something like that, jobs can respect that, because you're letting them know, but you're here for the 3 years that I am here. I'm going to give you all I have. So, it's just really about some interview techniques that you can use as well.
There you go. Well, I know Jeslyn and Christine um will do great, will be great candidates for you. That's why I picked them. Jeslyn, I've met Jeslyn in person. Christine, I haven't met you in person yet, but I feel like we know each other nonetheless. And I know these girls are go-getters. Like
Yeah.
they'll make you proud, Tiffany, and they'll be good case studies for your first graduating class.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds good. Well, I look forward to it. And, thank you for the opportunity to even provide a couple scholarships for, your Guru Nation.
Thank you so much. And then for those like you have a class coming up, but do you have a
Hmm.
plan for like because someone they might be watching this 2 years from now. Like,
Hmm.
do you have a plan every quarter? Um, should I just put your LinkedIn underneath or just the registration for the CTM Academy? Because these videos
Yeah.
last a long. I'll get comments like 10 years from now.
I know. So you can put both. You can put our LinkedIn, and then you can also put the CTM course website, because right now we are doing, so the course is 28 days. There are going to be 4 2-hour live sessions on Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the rest of the course is going to be self-paced. So the attendees will be able to go self-paced through the modules, and then we get together and go through the practical and answer the questions. And then they also have a live Q&A with me on Fridays for an hour as well. So they have a lot of opportunities to get the answers that they need. And after this first live course, we will be doing the live courses once a quarter. And then we do plan to do a fully self-paced course as well, where they don't even have to wait. They can just go in and grab it whenever they need.
Okay,
And they get
perfect.
lifetime access as well. So
Yeah, lifetime
that's
access is great.
yeah.
Well, so the links underneath, no matter when you're watching, it could be appropriate for you. Just contact Tiffany. It's the best way to go about it. But thank you again, Tiffany. It's so nice
Yeah.
of you to give back, and I'm happy I could find two excellent candidates. I know for a fact, like if these girls want to be CTM, they'll be CTM. Only thing
Exactly.
stopping them is themselves. Thank you, Jeslyn and Christine. Really appreciate it, guys, and everybody for watching.
Indeed. Thank you, Dan and Tiffany. You both are godsend to clinical research, and I do mean that. So thank you both.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, we look forward to training with you. That class starts on September 22nd with the first live, and we're going to go through the first module during that one. And then, it's self-paced from there, but we'll be meeting weekly. And yeah, I look forward to working with you and kind of mentoring you through that CTM role.
Right.
Thank you all. Follow-up interviews, definitely either group or one-on-one or a combo of all that. So everybody stay
Yeah.
tuned. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye-bye.